Carlos Moreira, thank you for coming on The Simple Truth all the way from Switzerland to have some good conversation today. How are you?
I am good, Jim. Nice to meet you.
Good, yes, good to meet you. Great to have you with us. I'd like to begin by simply asking you about your worldview. With a lot of what is discussed around this topic of the moral use of emerging technologies, there are many general terms that get thrown around. They can mean vastly different things to different people. So it's important to understand what worldview a person holds in order to get a better sense of how they are defining the terms they use. You are Catholic, yes?
I am. I am Catholic. I
Great. Can
was
you share with
educated
us?
by Jesuits.
Great. Can you share with us what does Jesus, the Catholic Church, your Catholic faith mean to you?
It means everything. It means my final destination. It means also my guidance in everything I do in life. And means also copying as much as I can as a human being the values that Jesus brought to earth and the model he gave us as a human to follow, right? So is the light, is the guidance for me.
Wonderful. As we're doing this interview, Joe Biden is actually meeting with Pope Francis. Would you say you're more of a Joe Biden kind of Catholic or a Cardinal Burke type of Catholic?
To be honest, I don't follow U.S. politics so much. You know, I am Swiss, and the Swiss are well known to be neutral people, so we don't have any political orientation. I am happy as a Catholic. I'm sure you are also to have a Catholic president of the United States. This is the second or third time happened in the history, so that should be a good thing. Now, I don't know personally the person itself. I don't know. I cannot really comment on his faith, on how he's portraying his faith. I think what he's trying to do, which is a noble endeavor, is to establish communication. I think communication is essential in this world, right? We are in a world where information is misrepresented sometimes and misunderstood other times. So putting the simple truth, like your mission, in the center is very important for me. Yeah, and surely for everybody.
Yes, communication is vital. I agree. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is, do you see yourself more of a nominal cultural type of Catholic or a faithful Catholic who believes everything that the Catholic Church teaches on faith and morals?
So again, I was brought by Jesuits. I don't know if you know them in Spain. I am originally from Spain. I am Swiss, and Jesuits have a view of the world, and you have to use your mind at the same time you use your heart and your faith. I mean, God has given us brains and have given us the possibility of using our intellect to understand things of the world. And then obviously you have the guidance of the Bible and the Catholic sacraments as a way to enrich your spiritual life. So this is what I practice. I don't know what kind of nomination you call that. Again, we are not so much into nominations. I apply. I would call my faith a faith of action. I wanted to bring my faith into concrete things. Then I can help others to either improve themselves or either to do better things for the society.
I see. And this isn't to say that someone needs to be Catholic or even religious in any way to be against the evils that I'm about to bring up. Anyone using proper natural reason ought to be in agreement. But where do you stand on evils like abortion and in vitro fertilization? You are against them and believe they ought to be illegal?
So I am a father of six. I think you are a father of five. So you know how much it's important when you have a big family, how many joy that big family brings to you. So abortion is obviously an obstacle against family creation. I understand that people might take decisions that they are not based on faith. I don't believe a Catholic church that is pro-abortion. No, that will basically defeats the purpose of the faith. But I believe at the same time that as a human, so you need to analyze each individual occasion and circumstances. It's very hard to. I mean, in Switzerland, as you know, if you know, but we just voted a few weeks ago, marriage of people with the same sex and things like that. So the society is going there now. Obviously, for Catholics, or people that have been educated on Catholic faith, this kind of movements might be contradictory to our faith, but it's an evolution of the society. I guess, again, we need to keep talking, and we need to keep evangelizing and bringing the light to all these circumstances.
Mm-hmm. But I guess just to be crystal clear, because this is a very important point when it comes to ethics and emerging technologies, to be crystal clear, is the child in the womb a human being, a human person with the inherent right to life?
Absolutely, 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 absolutely.
Okay, because the point here is that if one is already unethical with the technologies that we currently have, why would we think that they are going to be ethical with respect to emerging technologies? Wouldn't it make sense that if one is calling for ethics in emerging technologies, that they would also be calling for ethics in the technologies that we already have, such as clearly calling for the end of any technology that does not treat preborn children as human persons with an inherent right to life, specifically with regard to IVF and the ongoing daily mass murder of the preborn by abortion?
I agree. I get it. The essential right to live and benefit of the humanity, is a God gives, and nobody should prevent that to happen. Yeah, I agree. And if you don't have, I think your point you are making is that if you don't fundament your actions on faith, then your actions might be themselves compromised, right? Because you will lose direction and orientation of what actions are. And I agree with you.
Yeah, and not even as a matter of faith. I mean, even an atheist ought to hold this position of objective truth if we don't stand up for the most innocent, defenseless, vulnerable among us who are being dehumanized, treated as commodities, murdered by the hundreds of thousands worldwide every day. Doesn't that make all of us vulnerable to having our rights violated if we're not rock solid on that truth that every innocent human being has a right to life? Then isn't it just those in power defining which lives are worthy of life and which are not? Those don't seem to be the sort of people that we want to be leading the way on defining the ethics of emerging technologies, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. But Jim, you're also narrowing their circle if you just do that, because there are other peoples that might not have the same ethical, or I would call it Christian value, than you and I might have, and they are still very important in the discussion. So the discussion is not only narrow, I have those beliefs, therefore I can do good. You can do good without necessarily believing on those original beliefs. And this is where the discussion starts, right? This fundamental view that only Catholics have the answer, and the others need to follow us regardless, it basically reduces the possibility of doing good. We need to bring everybody to the discussion. The world is we have 7 billion people. We are only 1.3 billion Catholics. So you still have 4.7 billion people to bring to the discussion. Cannot only be Catholics.
Right. Yeah. And again, I'm not saying it's a Catholic point. I'm saying, yes, the Catholic Church certainly affirms that very strongly, but it is a point of human reason that we all ought to be together on. Anyway, seeking to understand your objectives and values, do you think the world is overpopulated? Are we in danger of overpopulation?
We're not. Actually, to the contrary. Depopulation is actually what is happening. You can see what is happening in Europe, or you see what is happening in the United States. Some countries, or look what is happening in Switzerland, some countries will not be able to refurnish jobs in a few years if they continue with this trend. We are not. This was a fantasy created that the world is overpopulated. Actually, we are not overpopulated.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree. And do you believe we ought to be pushing then so-called contraceptive technologies on developing countries? So this is common policy and practice at the UN. You worked at the UN. Do you condemn this practice?
No, I mean, again, Jim, you are generalizing. The UN is very vast. The United Nations is fragmented by many organizations. You have UNICEF taking care of kids. You have the United Nations World Organization taking care of health. You have the United Nations Commerce taking care of commerce. So you cannot just say the UN as a global thing. You have to go down. And to be honest, I don't remember seeing any UN organization that is saying what you are saying in that way. I mean, what the United Nations is obviously alerting in some countries where overpopulation compared to resources might be overwhelming. And this is because the economic resources of that country has not been deployed during because they have been colonialized. And the only warning the UN makes in this specific case is some countries where you're going to have poverty and the only thing is happening there is increasing the population, you might be a point of rupture. And this is a warning rather than a recommendation that people should be using pills as a way of not, having children. That's not, from my knowledge, any position of any United Nations. Maybe a person inside the UN that says that, but that's not the position of the organization.
Okay, yeah, I'm specifically talking about the UN Population Fund. It's one of the reasons that President Trump stopped U.S. taxpayer dollars from funding the UN Population Fund, which is also tied up in China's barbaric program of forced abortion. You're not aware of any of that?
The United Nations Population Fund, where is based that fund? I am not aware of it. Where is it?
You've not heard of it, the UN Population Fund. Okay. Let's go to your book, The TransHuman Code. In your book, you praise the Gates Foundation, writing that you write the following about Melinda Gates in particular, quote, Melinda recently spoke about her experience in Africa. One of the wonderful things about this person is her readiness to go and talk to the women that she's trying to help in their homes. You go on to say after they got a chance to be alone, the conversation would turn to their interest in contraception. And it's that kind of readiness to dive in that creates not only strategic, but intelligent and insightful philanthropy, end of quote. How do you explain, I guess, that praise? I guess you were already explaining it some, but how do you explain that praise of Melinda Gates pushing these so-called contraceptive drugs and devices on African women?
So again, I don't know the person. I cannot judge on her. I know what the Clinton and the initiative have done, and I know also what Melinda Gates Foundation with Bill Gates are doing here in Geneva, actually with the World Health Organization. I guess, again, you might need to interview her on that. In some countries where they go, because the overpopulation issues, they might be recommending that practice. But I hardly believe that this is core on their belief that this needs to be globalized. I think you have to look at overpopulation in relation to per capita, in relation to situation, climate change. There are areas of the world and they're in distress situation now because those reasons. And if she goes there and just alert them, then in that specific case would be maybe better to do it. Again, it's her prerogative to do that. I don't endorse that thinking. Neither I think that thinking is important. In any case, who follows that? I mean, Jim, let's be very clear. I mean, who follows those advice? Do you think people will actually do that because Melinda Gates, who goes to that country to say that they should do it? Humans are more sophisticated than that. We have our own opinions, and I don't think that type of actions have any impact. I understand that might be viewed from your point of view as an aberration, but I believe about humans and their decision-making process.
Okay, yeah. Maybe you're just not aware. I want to direct you in the audience to Uju Ikiocha's book, Target Africa: Ideological Neocolonialism in the 21st Century. Uju published an open letter to Melinda Gates in 2012 when she found out that Gates was collecting pledges for almost $5 billion to push so-called contraceptive drugs and devices on African women without telling them the whole truth about them. You can find the letter on the Vatican's Pontifical Council for the Laity's webpage. Highly recommend you read that. And Melinda Gates ignored it and pushed on along with others like the UN Population Fund. And that's why I bring it up, because you seem to be praising that in your book. You're praising Melinda Gates and contraception, that connection in the book. But yeah, maybe you're not aware of the deeper connection, so that's why I'm pointing it out. But so I guess, are you simply just uninformed on this issue in that way, or do you agree? It seems like you don't agree with this, that the ideology of Melinda Gates on pushing these so-called contraceptives on developing Catholic pro-life nations that do not want them, that this is a bad thing, and it's a bad sign when somebody in an influential position like you're in doesn't even seem to be aware that this is going on, and it's being pushed and backed by such big name people with such big dollars.
Jim, I understand that you're pushing your agenda on this call, but my agenda
Oh,
on writing the TransHuman Code has not been in any way to discuss whether we are in an overpopulated world or not. We are discussing about technology and how the human needs to be protected. The book only goes into that purpose. We are not. I will eventually need to make a research on the issues of overpopulation. I am not an expert on it. What I am telling you that as a Catholic, if you're asking me as a person what I think about it, I go against abortion in any form. I go against any intent to reduce population because first of all, it's not required. You know, we don't need to reduce population. Population is getting reduced systematically around the world. So you don't need the UN or Bill Gates or Melinda Gates Foundation accelerating that process. And those are areas that, although for you are very important, and I understand why they could be important, defending your faith principles, they were not research areas that I covered during the publication of the book. As simple as that.
okay. Yeah, I'm not pushing any sort of agenda. And again, these are not faith principles. These are principles of natural human reason. But I think that this conversation is important. I think we're trying to have this conversation on the ethics of emerging technologies interacting with humans, and that's what the Vatican conferences that you've been a part of are all about. So these are important points for that conversation. And quite frankly, these points ought to have been raised by someone representing the Catholic Church during these Vatican conferences. No one mentioned these points there.
No, they were not the subject of the book. As I say, the subject of the book was transhuman code and how human can take control on their own identity on the internet. I think the big picture there is what happened on the metaverse, how companies and people in the United States are getting their data manipulated, they are lost to their identity. This is the core issues treated on the Transhuman Code. It's not a Catholic or religious book. It is a book on where basically we are giving indication as a technologies on how you regain your independency on the metaverse. You see what happened yesterday with announcing the metaverse. That was the objective of the book. It was nothing else.
All right, yeah, okay, we'll leave the topic there, but I hope you will read Uju's Target Africa book. But let's get into the meat then of the fourth industrial revolution. You said in an interview that Klaus Schwab came up with, quote, this amazing idea of the fourth industrial revolution, and that Schwab coined it in Davos at the 2016 World Economic Forum. What is your relationship with Klaus Schwab, founder and leader of the World Economic Forum?
So we live in Geneva. The World Economic Forum is located in the city, right, together with the United Nations. So I have no relation particularly with Mr. Schwab. WISeKey was nominated one of the World Economic Forum global growth companies back in 2007. During that time, we assisted the World Economic Forum. Davos is an event. The World Economic Forum organizes an event, as you have many others in the United States, and you're not mentioning, but there are Davos-like events all over the world. And this one in Switzerland is an event that has been running for decades. Klaus Schwab is a professor, economic professor. He's not a technologist, so he just defends the economic principles. I know that some people has misunderstood eventually his concept of the fourth industrial revolution. Well, what I think he's trying to say, and again, you should interview him and not me on that. What he's trying to say is that humans are being moving towards different industrial revolution. The first one, agricultural revolution. Then we move to a machinery revolution where you have implications in job. People move from agricultural jobs to industrial jobs. From there, we move to the internet revolution, which is the one we are living. And this is the third one. And the fourth one will be eventually, if that ever happens, but again, he has no agenda that will happen, but he's alerting the people that eventually that could happen, is a revolution where other things like the metaverse, robotics, and others are involved in our society. And in that specific revolution, he's alerting that some jobs are going to disappear, others are going to be created. So he has been calling several meetings to trying to understand the consequences of that. I mean, Davos, when you talk about Davos, you think this is a complot place where people take decisions for the world. It's not. I mean, that was a conference, right? And Klaus Schwab is a person that organized events. So you have all sort of people going to Davos. You have philosophers, you have priests, you have technologists, you have a very large gathering, and they gather there just to exchange ideas, which is essential for the evolution of our collective thinking.
Okay, yeah. So you write in your book, The TransHuman Code, which you've been saying has nothing to do with transhumanism, that, quote, the fourth industrial revolution has been growing from the third for the last half century, and it is characterized, according to renowned German economist Klaus Schwab, as a fusion of technologies across the physical, digital, and biological worlds, end of quote. Isn't this so-called fourth industrial revolution, which you're endorsing and frankly pushing, very much about transhumanism? You said it right there in your book, where you define that so-called fourth industrial revolution as, again, a quote, fusion of technologies across the physical, digital, and biological worlds. Isn't that describing transhumanism?
No, no, because again, what we are defining is what the fourth industrial revolution is, so we can find solutions to neutralize the fourth industrial revolution. You have to call things by their name, because otherwise you will never find the solution. So what we are saying in that, we are at the similar time that happened in the Renaissance, where geography, mathematics, architecture got together. And that created a new paradigm shift in the evolution of the thinking of the humankind. There's where Leonardo da Vinci and many others emerged. We're in a similar situation now, where technology is merging, not because Klaus Schwab, not because Davos, not because me, because it's happening. I mean, biometrics is evolving, quantum computing is evolving, IoT is getting mainstream, connected cities are connecting. Your mobile phone on this video conference is only possible because we have infrastructure and technology behind, otherwise we will not be able to do. So this is a fact. I mean, this is happening now. The convergence, and this is the alert, the convergence could create something that we don't want to be detrimental to humans. That convergence, which is the fourth industrial revolution, where biology will eventually also converge with technology, and this is what many people are trying to do, right? If you get an accident and you break your leg and you have to have a titanium implant in your leg, you are already combining technology with biology, right? So that happens all the time. Now the question is where we want that to stop, and what we do not want to create. What we don't want to create is an artificial human, or an enhanced human, or a human that loses his soul. And the good news is that technology cannot create that, because humans have characteristics like compassion, like faith, like love, things that computers will never be able to mimic. So what we are saying is that rather, if ever the fourth industrial revolution happens, if ever those forces are going to be there, let's develop a switch, something that the humans can control, so we can have the possibility to opt out of all that. It has to be part of the liberty of humans. But what you cannot just say is that the fourth industrial revolution is not going to happen. I mean, the evolution is there already. I mean, you see with the announcement yesterday of Facebook on Meta, the new name. I mean, this is happening. Facebook has more inhabitants in that metaverse that United States citizens in the United States. So the question here, Jim, is how collectively, how we can increase the understanding of everybody to understand the consequences of developed technologies than they are designed to protect humans, and not just saying the fourth industrial revolution will never happen, or the fourth industrial revolution is a complot. I mean, this kind of talk is hiding the truth. Actually, the truth is not there. The truth is that this is happening, but we have the possibility as a human to stop that to become detrimental to humans. So it becomes a tool, when you are a artist, you cannot paint if you don't have a brush. If you have a musician, you cannot play if you don't have an instrument. So the instrument is the technology, the talent is the human, but both of them needs to be together in order to achieve the final result.
Okay, yeah, I want to ask you about that inevitability, but first, on its website, the World Economic Forum continues, it gives a definition of transhumanism as follows. It says, quote, "It is rooted in the belief that humans can and will be enhanced by the genetic engineering and information technology of today, as well as anticipated advances such as bioengineering, artificial intelligence, and molecular nanotechnology. The result is an iteration of Homo sapiens, enhanced or augmented, but still fundamentally human," end of quote. So you're saying that what is being described there, that is not part of what you and Schwab are calling the fourth industrial revolution.
No, your question is not a good question. What you're saying, you're mixing issues there. The first thing I am saying is that I, as a person or technologies, I don't endorse that definition. I don't believe that transhumanism is what needs to happen for humans, right? I already explained the reason. Transhumanism is not happening in Davos. Actually, transhumanism is happening in the United States, and singularity in universities. And they are pushing the envelope on billionaires. Then they are investing all their money to become eternals. There's the problem. You might need just to call Google and ask why their chief information officer is a transhumanist. There's the problem. The fourth industrial revolution is totally different. The fourth industrial revolution could eventually expand without transhumanism. They are two different things. The fourth industrial revolution is not equal to transhumanism. Fourth industrial revolution is equal to the conversion of technologies that could end up in something which is good for humans, provided that we as a human, we control what we are doing there. So you're gonna mix in, I mean, if your intention is to mix with World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, myself with the transhumanist, I think we should stop this call, because this is not what we are trying to achieve. I mean, that's only feeding your audience, and we should not enter into that game. No, Tim, I am serious about it. If you want to have a clear breakdown on things and clarification, we can do it. If you want to amalgamate things just to satisfy your audience, that's something that I am not willing to do.
Not at all. I was simply just asking about the definition on that website, if that would be included in what you're calling the fourth industrial revolution. But I understand. Look, here's what I'm seeing. Yes, emerging technologies are coming. But what you and Schwab are calling for with this so-called fourth industrial revolution is a specific vision regarding those emerging technologies that is not inevitable or necessarily so, but rather a particular paradigm that you and Schwab are pushing. Aren't you actually trying to get people on board for this particular paradigm that you're calling the fourth industrial revolution?
Jim, stop to say you and Schwab is pushing. Stop saying you and Schwab is pushing. I am not pushing anything, and I have nothing to do with Schwab. They are two different things, right? So focus on my book, and you call Schwab and you answer the questions to him. Don't mix things, please. No, really, just thing. Because you are. It's like I am trying to mix you with something that you are not. You will not like that, right? No. You are just mixing things there. As I say before, the fourth industrial revolution is a movement. People, it's like the third industrial revolution. There's people that they never participated in the third industrial revolution. Why? Because they never bought a computer. There are people that they never participated into the second industrial revolution. Why? Because they never enter into the agricultural revolution. So there's going to be people that they will not jump into the fourth industrial revolution because they just don't want it to do, and we give them that option. So the fourth industrial revolution is not for everybody.
What I'm simply asking is, isn't there a distinction though between what you're calling the fourth industrial revolution and emerging technologies, so that we ought to be considering other ways of seeing these emerging technologies and human interaction with them that could possibly be outside of the banner of what you're calling the fourth industrial revolution? Are you saying there's only one way to look at the interaction between emerging technologies and humanity, and that's the paradigm that you're saying is the fourth industrial revolution? There's only one way to see it?
But as I said before, the fourth industrial revolution might be never happen. Already the world is run. It's industrial. We're in a digital age. So eventually we should call that the first digital revolution and not the industrial revolution, because the fourth industrial revolution is based on the third, which actually was industry based. This is a revolution on the digital world, because the digital world, and this is being created by companies like Facebook and others, are moving towards the metaverse. So that's the big discussion. It's not the fourth industrial revolution. If we have to do it again, we should just call that something different, right? The fourth industrial revolution is a name that does not compete anymore with the current world situation on technologies. The world is moving towards the metaverse. That's the problem. That means that you as a human, you will be dematerialized in something like an avatar that is going to live in the metaverse. And that is very dangerous, because in the metaverse, those conversions has already been done. It's already there. When Facebook brings all the technology to create a metaverse, that convergence has been already established. That means that the user that is inside the metaverse is already suffering the consequences of that convergence.
Okay, yeah, let's just get into some specifics before we wrap it up. You say that you're against coercion, and your company does make vaccine passports. Many see vaccine passports as being coercive. Do you see that in any way, trying to force people to take the jab or else be purged from society?
Again, the questions and your answers are misleading. We do not have anything to do with vaccine passport. We are a cybersecurity company. What we do is to secure that people don't issue fake vaccine passports. So that means that you will create a fake vaccine passport or fake vaccines. There's a lot of people suffering now for fake vaccines. And cybersecurity company has been called to help to create technology that helps to authenticate and to validate that what you're getting is not a fake product. And we have done that with many other products. But we are not in the business of doing any vaccine certificates ourselves. The vaccine certificates are done by the vaccine responsible government institution or health institution, and they have the right to do so.
Okay, but do you see vaccine passports as being coercive in any way?
Vaccine, again, I don't want to enter into the anti-vaccine discussion here. That will be too much for one call, from WEF Davos vaccine. There are people that believe that they should vaccine themselves because they have reasons to do. Others do not believe they should do it. Again, let humans decide, right? And not us on behalf of humans. I mean, in our days, in Switzerland, we have 50% of the population is vaccinated. The other 50% don't want to vaccinate. There's their choice, both ends. I am not here to tell which one is right. Time will tell. We are at the beginning of a very serious pandemic. Time will tell whether this pandemic has been over treated or simplified too much. We have no data yet to analyze that. Time will tell.
Okay, yeah, I was just trying to get at your definition of coercion, if you think that vaccine passports could possibly be coercive in any way. But tell us about your plan for digital IDs.
So on the passport, maybe just to close that, I think, yes, I think if you misuse or you abuse on those certificates, like entering into a restaurant or going to the cinema or having 5 PCR tests before you can do something, obviously that is coercive, and that diminishes the liberties. Also, the data, the way governments are treating that data is not secure. And I've been telling many times, including on conferences, that in 20 years' time, we might forget about COVID, but we will remember that due to COVID, we are in the danger to enter into society, which will be a surveillance society, right? And that's a very big danger that we are facing now, because data is everywhere now, and people are giving data that they never gave before, right? So the digital identity is actually the way to protect that to happen, because when you give data to anybody, you are giving the entire data set, your identity, your health information, and that data is in one block. You're giving that data, and technology allows you to break that data into pieces. So for instance, you can give your health information without disclosing who you are, because the who you are is a private information, the PII, personal identifiable information. So that information, what we call an identity, should be on the control of the user. So you as a user, Jim, will eventually give away your identity under your consent if you wish to do so. And for that, you need to put that identity into blockchain technology, which is decentralizer, and it's not like a centralized databases. So that's the concept of decentralization of identity. The identity is already there. If you are already connected here into this VMX call, you're already giving your identity to this website. So your identity is already recorded. And if you are in Facebook, your identity is in Facebook. And if you ever bought anything in Amazon, your identity is on Amazon. The question is, how can you retrieve it back and get it yourself? and be your, as a person, the one that decide what people should do or not with that identity under your consent. So then
oh, go ahead.
No, and in that process of consent, then the consent can be very powerful, because it's the same consent we have in our daily lives. If you invite somebody to your house for dinner, you give the consent to come in once, but not to come in every day, right? When we provide or consent to social media, we are actually inviting them to come in to dinner every day. There's no way to retrieve the consent back. So consent is a consequence of digital identification.
So the digital ID, it would be sort of like a birth certificate, but it wouldn't be tied to any country. Who actually would be putting this forth? Where would we be getting this digital ID from? Who issues it?
Anyone that do not centralize identities on databases. I mean, it could be your church can issue an identity, could be your county can issue an identity, could be anyone that is willing to issue an identity, but that identity is under your control. There's not a big organization that you're going to, to the contrary, we should avoid anybody globalizing that identity process, because that immediately will become the target. It has to be decentralized. It has to be on ledger, blockchain ledger, so the identity is verifiable without the need to centralize in one place. And that identity should be owned by the person.
Right. Yeah, you write about in Switzerland how some citizens have been voting electronically for almost 12 years, and that your company WISeKey has been on the leading edge of that e-voting initiative. I think some people in the US might be a bit concerned about e-voting. Do you think that's a good idea for the future?
So when we talk about e-voting, the concept in Switzerland is actually we in Switzerland, we vote through postal mail, and we have done that for many years. And there was an experiment to just vote electronically using a digital identity, which is the citizen identity. And that's convenient, but it's not the mainstream. I mean, we are actually in Switzerland just do it in many different ways. Even the e-voting, as originally done a few years ago, was not continued, because the Swiss people actually they voted against the need of having a digital identity. So there you see a scenario where you have one country that says, we don't need a digital identity. We want to prefer to wait a few years more until the technology will be more mature. So you have all sort of scenarios. So no, I don't believe e-voting is the solution. I think technology is not yet designed in a way that will make that e-voting, especially in the United States, a replacement of your current system, which is a very sophisticated and I mean, although you have all theories there, right? But it is a system that has proved its efficiencies over the elections. I think as the technology will continue expanding, especially blockchain technology and decentralization, you could imagine one day to be a complement, not a replacement of existing voting systems. Remember that voting systems are done by voting machines. So you are, even in the United States, you're already doing a technology voting system, because you're using voting machines. So it's not like you are voting, with paper only. You have machines behind the process, right? So the question is how this technology is going to evolve in the next years.
Got it. All right, final question. You write that it's no longer enough to assert that democracy is supreme. Democracy must be shaped by us through the one global relationship that can either destroy it or elevate it indefinitely. Humanity's partnership with technology, how we lead or don't lead this partnership over the next few years, will define life on this planet indefinitely. Let's lead, all of us together, end of quote. But somebody has to be in charge. Who is in power in this paradigm?
There's no power. I mean, Switzerland is a good example. The Swiss democratic system is one of the most decentralized systems on earth. I mean, citizens bring referendums, can call referendums, and we vote on it. And it's totally decentralized at the cantonal level. And we are a small country. And that's why we don't even have a big government, here. I mean, the government here, our president takes the metro every day to go work. So the vision of having a totally decentralized ecosystem that allows people to reflect their ideas through the internet, it will reduce the need to having this kind of pyramidal government structure, where you have few people deciding what the rest of the people should do. And that's going to be the future of democracy. I think that the thesis that we cover on democracy is that if democracy runs in technology, the OS, the operating system of democracy, is totally obsolete, because they are using very old technology, very old processes. And this is going to evolve into a more sophisticated technology backend, which will empower people. So the fourth industrial revolution, which I know you are against, in that specific case, will give you more liberty to the person, because the person will be able to manifest in a different way their choices in a way that cannot be manipulated, in a way that cannot be counterfeited, in a way that cannot be changed or deviated.
And just for example, a farmer who wants nothing to do with any of it, they just want to keep doing what they're doing, raising their family on the farm, they can totally opt out, and everybody's just going to leave them alone, and that will be fine, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. And by the way, that farmer should have the right to disappear. But in order to have the right to disappear from the internet, from the metaverse, from the fourth industrial revolution, they should have the key to do so. They still need a switch. Because what happens if you're a farmer, you say, I will never enter into the internet, I don't want to even be related to anything. Your name, Gene Evans, will be used by somebody else, and that person will use your identity on the internet without you to know. So the question is, how can you withdraw from any technology while at the same time you avoid anybody to use your name, your address, your PII, and be yourself on the metaverse? So yeah, exactly. Everybody should have the choice to decide what type of experience they want to live on the future of technology.
Carlos, you've given us a lot to think about. You've been very generous with your time. I very much appreciate the conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for your question. And please don't mix things. Nothing to do with Klaus Schwab, nothing to do with the WEF. All that, there are different things. We can have one discussion one day on each of them if you wish. But when you bring them together, it creates a kind of conspiracy theory here, which is not the case. I think we need to be, we need to zoom into things. We need to break things into pieces, analyze. Some of them they are good, others they are less good, and I will happily discuss with you on them. But when we mix them, it's impossible to solve the problem, right? It becomes a philosophical.
Inflate anything. Just try to use what you have said, trying to understand what you have said about Klaus Schwab coining the fourth industrial revolution, and then you're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. So not trying to conflate, just trying to understand.
But it's a book. Fourth Industrial Revolution is a book, like the TransHuman Code. I had a discussion yesterday with Steve Bannon on the TransHuman Code. So I explained that this is not transhuman. So there are the titles of books. And then the book is designed to open the discussion, which is what we are doing now. If I didn't write the TransHuman Code and we didn't organize that meeting, you and I will not be discussing, right? So I think that's the objective, is to keep the discussion up and bring light to the truth, the simple truth. I like your title, by the way. That's what it's all about.
Any points today that I was able to bring up for you that were helpful for the conversation, things that you might ponder and think about, look into for the future?
I think the point you bring, which is a point that is essential, and I think it's not only for me, but also for you and for anybody, is how can we not relate our faith with our actions, right? Faith and actions should always be together, right? So that means that if you obey to several Christian principles, then you have to apply them in your actions. But that refers to you too. If you use your faith principle to misinform or create conspiracy, then you are not anymore obey to those principles, as I will do myself if I will use those principles to develop the wrong technology. So we are all in the same process, right? We all need to ask at the end of the day, each of us, what I did today is something that has or has not been based on my principles and my faith.
Right. Do you get that main point though? What I'm saying though about the respect for the preborn child in the womb. If we're already abusing life in the womb, can't we see that with emerging technologies, that's only going to get worse and worse?
I don't think it will get worse. I think humans will understand, and technology will help to understand that actually what they are killing is a human life. I don't think this notion is clear in some people's mind. They think that what they are doing is not that grave or that serious. I think public opinion, technology, and your efforts and people like you will make the difference. If I have 6 kids and if you have 5 kids, right, it's because we understood that very early, right? So people will understand. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, use whatever influence you have to try to end this ongoing daily mass murder of the preborn. I think we've got to end it. And I hope, do you see that vision that there can be an end to this, just like we've seen other human rights atrocities that were once legal, that now they're illegal, they're unthinkable, and hopefully that's the trajectory that we go with respect to the evils that are violating the right to life, the inherent right to life of the preborn child.
Legislation for that, Jimmy. That's why, working with the UN and other organizations is the way to go. I mean, although you might have this population UN, which I don't know about it, you have also the United Nations Commission for Human Rights that defines the human right. What about to put inside that declaration that life starts at the beginning and not, so there's a definition. I mean, we should maybe lobby so the United Nations Commission of Human Rights puts that protection in the Declaration of Human Rights. So if anybody do it against that, it becomes unlawful. This is the way to act. I mean, you need to go down to where the regulators go.
I guess that would be my only point to just encourage you, if that could somehow be made explicit when you're talking about the fourth industrial revolution, that we need to protect the rights not just of people after they are born, but human beings even before they are born. From the moment of conception, fertilization, we've got to be ethical towards every human person.
I fully agree. By the way, one other thing, the AI is doing. AI is very good to replicate things that we do, like every day, like repetitive tasks. But AI is not good to do anything related to emotion, principles, or even feelings. That's where humans are unique. AI will never replace us there. So if we use AI just to take from our time and effort, everything which is repetitive, so we can focus human in thinking more about the things that we have been discussing here, you will see breakthroughs happening. We are too busy in some cases. People are too busy to even think about it. So that's maybe one of the good consequences of whatever revolution is going to come, fourth or fifth or third, is that humans are going to have more time to be empathetic about themselves and to be helping each other. I think the world of goodness is going to start with this revolution rather than a world of not darkness.
Okay. All right. It's been a blessing talking with you, Carlos. God bless you. And yeah, hopefully we will connect sometime in the future again. And yeah, I'm going to continue to ponder much of what was discussed today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for your time. All the best.
All
Anytime.
right.